Welcome back to the Unstuck movement. This podcast was created for you to help you get unstuck from those places in your life that have been holding you back. So if you have chains that have been holding you down, we want to break those chains off with stories of faith, perseverance, passion, and strength, right? The power to get past where we're stuck right now to create those breakthroughs that you need in your life. So we bring people onto this podcast who have broken those chains, who have gotten unstuck, so that you have examples for yourself that it can be done. Oftentimes when we're stuck in those spots in our life, we wonder, am I ever going to get out of this place? Can I ever move on from where I'm at right now? I've been in this hole for such a long time. Well, listen, there's definitely a way for you to get out. There's definitely a power inside of you that will get you unstuck to the new great parts of your life. And I want to tell one of those stories today to give you that inspiration. Today, Justin Danforth is on the podcast. So on September 29th in 2016, Justin was released from the North Carolina Department of Corrections after serving 14 years and 4 months. So while serving his time, Justin picked up as much education as he possibly could, including, but not limited to, a 2-year associate's degree in electronical engineering technologies, numerous vocational trades and technical skills. Moving from student to assistant instructor, he worked extremely hard to become a leader, an organizer, an example of how to turn around a life. Today, Justin is an entrepreneur while staying committed to reaching out to others. He gives motivational and inspirational speeches. He has become a positive influence and a voice to all those struggling with vices, limited beliefs, and self-awareness, sharing what he has learned about living a life of purpose over pleasure. Dude, I love that. Justin, welcome to the Unstuck movement. Thank you for being here.
Yeah, thanks for having me.
Absolutely, man. So I love to start these episodes with a question. As John Maxwell said, good leaders ask great questions. So I'm going to ask you a great question to kick this thing off and how it feeds into your unstuck story. How did you create your vision for your life?
Wow, man, that's an incredible question. It is a great question. For me, again, everything with my personal growth and development started during my incarceration. So when I first got incarcerated, I had an 8th grade education. I was really ignorant, not just like in terms of academia, but just in terms of mindset. Very arrogant, very angry, very hurt, things of that nature, right? So I was real good at having a criminal mindset and doing negative crap, right, to say the least. So while sitting in prison, one of the greatest things that happened for me was going to prison, because life happens for us and not to us, because it gave me the opportunity to sit with myself. And the longer I sat with myself, the more disgusted I became. I started to hate who I was, who I had become, and where I was at. And I never played the victim game and blamed anybody else for my situation. I always owned my story. However, while owning my story, I couldn't blame nobody else but myself. And that's what made me more disgusted than anything. It was like, this is your fault. It would have probably felt, maybe it would have felt easier if I could have blamed somebody else for my situation. So the more dislike I had for not only myself and who I had become and where I was at, the need for change, aroused. And I just started reading personal growth and development literature, same books everybody reads, I imagine anyway. All the usuals like Dale Carnegie and Stephen Covey and, Napoleon Hill. So it was no aha moment. I didn't just wake up and say, oh, I'm going to change the trajectory of the rest of my life, right? And just have this vision. I started crafting my vision out of a daily routine and sticking to it. And that was one of the things that education taught me more than anything. I have the engineering degree that you mentioned, in the introduction. I've never even thought about using it. Never had the first interest in having an engineering degree. However, the penitentiary, the specific facility that I was at, they only had 2 options. One was IST, Information Systems Technology, and the other one was electronical engineering. Well, I didn't care which one I got enrolled in. It was just I had to stay assigned in order to get out on that 14 years and 4 months minimum release date, because I was originally sentenced to 17 years and 9 months. Right. So again, what the education taught me more than, you know, trigonometry and all the things of being an engineer, it taught me discipline. It gave me some structure, and I hold myself to a higher standard when I make the decision to do something. So I gave it my all, and I did graduate with honors. And what I understood from that was, if I could do this, I can do anything.
Mm-hmm.
Right. So between establishing that and reflecting on my past, all the trials and things that I've overcome, that pain that I've faced, I gained this source of power in order to craft my vision. And so the question was, how did I craft the vision? It was through a daily process and deciding, what is my purpose in life and what do I want to become? What do I see the future Justin? What do I see Justin as being stepping out of prison? And that's where that change and that vision become crafted or molded, so to speak.
You know, man, it's interesting because vision is at the top of everything, right? If you don't have the vision set, then you can't really put the other pieces together, and you're led astray by a bunch of different things. The outside world, the external world's constantly pulling us in a million different directions. So without that vision being set, super easy to fall off course and get off track. So that's something when I'm working with people in businesses, I talk about all the time, is like, if we don't have that vision set, and if you go in and somebody's having problems or a business is having problems, the problem is they've lost the vision, or they never had one in the first place. And then they get bogged down by all the problems, and the problems become the vision. Right. So it's really interesting you said this too, because the past couple of conversations, well, the last one I had on this podcast with Sierra Collins and Jim Hetherington, similar stories, these things that were really seemed to be horrible things to happen to them in their life were a gift that actually helped them to redirect their life. And it's really interesting how life gives us gifts. And my mentor, Ray, always says it's the same thing you just said, man. Everything is either happening to you or it's happening for you, right? And so prison happened for you. It didn't look like it, but you decided to use it, right? So, I mean, I would imagine that 99% of people in prison, it's happening to them. You could answer that way better than I could. So I'd like to hear your thoughts on that. But obviously, it happened for you to get you to where you are, because it caused a pause for a wake up call for you to have that awakening. And before I ask another question, I'm curious about that. Most people in prison, the people that you associated with, what percentage would you say that experience was happening to them and not for them?
Oh, a very high percentage, probably 85 to 90%.
Why do you think you were different?
Because for me, out of arrogance, I stood firm on the things that I did. Out of, to me, I worked hard on gaining a certain reputation, even though it was a negative reputation. I worked hard to get that label of being who I was at that time. So for me, owning my story was just more of a, yeah, I did this and what, so to speak, right?
Yeah.
And again, very arrogant and
A lot of pride involved in that.
Yeah, very egotistical. So, and others, like, why that I think that percentage is so high for other people, it happening to them, is because everybody wants to play the victim instead of the victor. See, I'm the victor, always have been, whether it was in a negative, my past life, or shifting to making everything positive. I'm the victor. I never played that victim mentality, and most people do. There's a lot of mental health issues, whether it's evident or not. A lot of guys going in prison had just mental health issues. A lot of them go in, you know, some 30, 40, 50-year-old men who dropped out of school, eighth, ninth grade, and have been drinking and drugging since, or even before, while they,
Mm.
you know, their brain isn't where it should be. And so it's easy not to know what they need to know in terms of owning responsibility and just being able to blame everything else on other people. So prison happened to them. It's the judge's fault. It's the DA's fault. It's the white man's fault. It's the black man's fault. It's the lawyer's fault. You know, it's the victim's fault, right? It was their fault. You know, whatever. So
Yeah.
the co-defendant or somebody snitched on them. It was all these excuses or reasons for it to be somebody else's fault.
Do you think that was just a part of who you are? So that wasn't something that you had to train yourself to be, to take responsibility. That's just kind of like, that's who you were from a young age.
Exactly. My dad, like I don't know my biological father, but my stepfather is who raised me and who I know to be my dad. So he was a man's man, right? And that was how he raised me. You take responsibility for everything you do. You
Mm.
don't coward. Like you just, you know, to not take responsibility is a sign of weakness and being a coward.
You know, man, we don't have to go deep into this. I'm just curious as part of this Unstuck story, right? When you were stuck at a young age, what caused you with that sort of mentality from your dad? What caused you to go down the path you did? And like I said, we don't have to go deep into it, but just like, what do you think caused that?
Financial hardship. So it was just my mom and my dad and my sister and I. And my
Mm.
mom and my dad always struggled. He worked hard. He always had his own business, but just wasn't successful. And you know, they couldn't afford a lot of things and barely could afford, you know, we always lived with other family members. So seeing that financial struggle just kind of I turned into having to being a person of product of my environment where it was like, I'm not gonna grow up and be broke. I know an easy way of getting money because I knew older people, you know, older guys that I hung out with that sold drugs,
Mm.
and I took that route.
Oh man, that makes a lot of sense. Okay. You were saying about getting your degree while you were in prison and developing the system for yourself while you were in prison, right? The system, following a system, having that system in place is one of the main things that gets people unstuck. Was that something that you carried from your previous life when you were, doing the illegal things that you were doing? Was a system something you always had in place even before you were in prison and setting a better positive system for yourself, or was that something you had to learn through the books that you read?
No, it was definitely something I learned through the books that I read, just becoming more self-aware. So certain facilities, they come around, say 6 o'clock in the morning for count time. You have to be up on your feet at your gate or door to your cell and standing there at 6 o'clock in the morning. I becoming more self-aware, I learned very quickly I don't like for nobody to beat on my door and wake me up.
Mm.
So I got up ahead of time. And it was just that. It's like, okay, this is what I don't like, and this is, you know, how to fix that. This is what I do like, and this is what I can do more of. So
Mm.
just becoming more self-aware through the literature that I was reading, because I didn't know that it was self-awareness until it was articulated through the literature that I was reading. I was doing it, but I couldn't I didn't know that I was doing it.
Yeah, man, how interesting. Because you don't know what you don't know, and you were involved in a situation where you didn't know what you did know, right?
Yeah.
You were doing things you weren't quite sure what they were yet. That's really fascinating. Can you speak to people who don't have a system in their life and what that did to change you? Like, first of all, would you say that was a catalyst for you getting unstuck? And what can other people do to like implement that? Maybe something simple that could get them started.
So it was definitely a catalyst for me being to get unstuck. However, it starts with integrity, right? So you have to not negotiate with yourself when you say you're going to do something. So all the systems in the world, you can have all your systems, but if you're not implementing them, or you're faltering or altering rather on the implementation, one day you're on, one day you're off, because you're negotiating with yourself, and then it's not going to work. You're not going to get to where you were supposed to be going, the reason you had the system to begin with, right? And I say that because a lot of us will go out of our way to please, or not please, but to keep our word to somebody else if we tell them we're going to do something, right? If I say I'm going to pick you up, Rob, I'm going to pick you, you call me, hey man, I got a doctor's appointment, my car's in the shop, can you I got to ride to work, but can you pick me up? I don't want to have to call an Uber at 3 o'clock this afternoon. And I say, sure, man, I'll be there. You're like, are you sure? I have to be at that appointment, by 3:30. Can you make it? And I'm like, yeah, man, I got you. And you're like, you sure? And I'm like, that's my word. I'll be there. And I didn't even look at my calendar. And, oh man, I had something else scheduled. I had a different commitment scheduled. But guess what? I'm gonna put that off because I gave Rob my word I would be there.
Mm-hmm.
But we don't do that when it comes to ourselves.
Mm-hmm.
If I say, you know what, if I tell my wife I'm going to go on a diet, I'm going to lose 20 pounds over the next 30 days. I'm going to try this, this 30 or 90-day plan and diet. And I'm going to get up at 3 o'clock every morning and go to the gym. And then I don't do it. Or I do it 2 or 3 days and then I don't do it. And then I do it one day and then I don't do it. You see what I'm saying?
Yeah.
We don't have the integrity with ourselves, keeping our word to ourselves to implement the systems that we put in place.
Hi, my name is Jose Escobar, and I'm the founder and CEO of the Connected Leaders Academy. We're a growing tribe, a community of entrepreneurs all over the world, globally, all across the country, high performers, titans of industry. If you're an entrepreneur and you're looking to grow personally and professionally, scale your influence, develop your skill sets, move the needle in your business, more clients, more money, more profit, the bottom line, and of course, grow your circle and your network like never before, this is where you want to be. Join the Connected Leaders Academy today. We are scaling massively. We want to welcome you in. Check me out on Instagram and on Facebook, the @ JASCO25. We look forward to having you join us. Take care.
It's like, that's where low self-esteem, low self-confidence come from, breaking the promises to yourself.
Exactly.
And unfortunately, look, for me, and maybe for you also, I had to learn that the hard way. Had to learn that, like, oh, the reason I have low self-esteem is because I know I should be living by these sets of morals and values, and I'm not. I tell myself I'm going to do something, or I tell myself I'm going to stop doing something, but then I don't start doing it and I don't stop doing it. Why do I hate myself? Why am I speaking negatively to myself, right? You create a bad relationship with you. And like you said, if you had a friend like that, you wouldn't be that person's friend anymore, right? Yeah. Which I guess also is where codependency comes from. It's almost like where two people are breaking promises to themselves and to each other, and it creates that sort of spiral, because then you bring those kind of people into your life. So before you went to prison, compared to when you came out, because I find, in my own life, the past like 6 years, my circle has completely changed with the people that are in my life. When I was younger, man, I had a lot of people, and no, I wouldn't say anybody was bad. We were all just misguided. We were lost. A lot of people fell into drugs. A lot of people went to prison. A lot of people were in rehabs. And I don't really talk to any of those people anymore. I don't wish anything bad upon them, but I'm just in a different place. What was that like for you before going into coming out, reshaping your life in that way with a brand new mindset? That had to have been really interesting. And I guess the question I'm asking is because when we go back to our hometown, to our old friends, to our family, and they're expecting a different version of us, that can keep us stuck. How did you break free from that?
Yeah, that's a great question. So for me, it was, so throughout my incarceration, I discovered that a lot of guys kept coming back, right? The recidivism rate is so high. And I discovered that the reason they kept coming back is because the mass majority of them had these unfulfilled dreams, right? I call it unfulfilled street dreams. Whether it was this one more high, or this one more, drug package, right? This one more kilo they had to get their hands on and flip, and then they were going to be out the game for life. Or this one more, or they went back to their toxic relationship with their baby mother, or ex whatever. And so what I found was, for me, I had already been there and done all of that. For me, what was unfulfilled was a domestic lifestyle. Prior to going to prison, I never woke up every day to the same woman. Took out the trash, cut grass, paid the bills, and things of this nature. I never lived a domestic lifestyle. So that's what I yearned for. And so I learned it's easy to just not do these things and do what I'm used to, right? So I had to make discomfort my comfort zone, find pleasure in the pain. And I learned that the obstacle was the way. It was difficult to live a domestic lifestyle. I had to make a conscious effort, and that's what every single day starts with. Getting up at 3 o'clock in the morning and making a conscious effort not to fall back on who I said I was going to become, and who I did become, and who I am. So going around family and old environments was just, it wasn't that difficult for me, because I'm very firm and I hold myself in a high regard, and I stand upon what I stand upon, and they don't question that. They whisper behind my back. See, a lot of them actually fueled me to become better by betting against me, because they used to say, well, he's just saying that because he's in prison. Oh, he's not going to do that when he gets out. Nobody does that. He'll probably go back to prison, or he'll probably be, all the whispers that they say, right, behind my back. And the fact that a lot of energy changed when I became successful immediately upon release, fueled me to become even better and do more, because I leveled up so fast to a level of them losing that bet when they bet against me. Nobody likes to lose a bet. So now they kind of like turn the other way. And it's easy for me to keep moving forward.
How do you operate now with, maybe there are people still betting against you? Do you still hold that frame of mind, or what drives you now moving forward, now that you're successful, you've created a great business for yourself, and you're doing amazing things? What's that drive now? What does that look like?
What that looks like is exactly what we started this off with: the clarity of vision. Mm-hmm. My vision is so clear, and it's always developing, and it's growing. So it's never stagnant. So every single day I have to continue to stack wins and live congruent to that vision. Because second I don't, go ahead.
Do you share your vision?
Yeah.
I'm curious, what is it?
So for me, it is, of course, to increase revenue throughout all of our companies. When I say ours, my wife and I, it's being, continuing to be a better husband, a better father, a better grandfather, a great neighbor, a well-rounded citizen of society, like all of the good things, right? Mm-hmm. But also it's living out my purpose, right? And that's what fuels me more than anything, is making sure every single day I live out my purpose. My purpose in life, which is part of that vision, is to become the best version of myself and give that person to the world. Mm. And I do that by way of the programs that I offer and trying to establish a community to build a deeper impact.
I love that, man. My mentor, Ray, he says the same things you just said. I mean, his motto throughout his entire life I just want to be the best version of myself that I can be today. And if we can keep it, it can be that simple, right? Your vision should be more, obviously vision is the future and something we're moving towards, but on a daily basis, just to be better than you were yesterday and to keep leveling up, you can never go wrong with that. Can't go wrong with that. Like it's going to continually level you up, and it's going to compound on top of each other to where you won't even recognize yourself a decade from now. And I'm sure that's your case, man. What do you, when you look at yourself now compared to, you know, say 20 or 25 years ago, do you still see those old parts of you just in different ways?
No, it's completely different.
Yeah.
There may be certain attitudes or mannerisms, that are still there, but those are the ones that I'm okay with hanging on to. For certain reasons, right? They protect me. They keep that balance between compression and compassion when dealing with myself, my inner, my self-talk, right? My subconscious, that voice in your head, whatever you want to call it. And also when dealing with others.
Amazing, man. This has been a really insightful, inspiring conversation. I want to thank you for coming on. I want to ask the audience also, so anybody watching or listening to this, what do you have to do to create your vision in your life? I think that's an important question for us all to go through, because a lot of people never even think about their vision and they have no idea where to start, and they have no examples of how to do that. So if you want an example of how to do that, reach out to Justin. His information is in the bio of this conversation. You can also reach out to myself, somebody in your life. Try to find vision for your life. What does that look like? What does that mean? How do you do that? Because that can be school doesn't teach it. Our parents usually don't teach it to us. We usually don't hear that maybe ever in our lives. When you start to hear that word like vision and applying it to yourself, how do you start to do that, man? Before we sign off, I just want to ask, what would you say to somebody who is in your situation? Because there's lots of people who are struggling. I mean, you know this, I know this. You were around many of them for a long time, man. What do you say to them if you're going back and helping those people? Where do you start? How do you start to help them? What advice would you give them?
Man, that's a great question. And to make it short and not even sweet, but just short and straight to the point. Start with, who do you want to become? And go every single day relentlessly becoming that person.
What steps would they take? What actions would they make? How would they speak? Like every part of you, like how would you start to
every
change
part
that?
of you? Exactly. And that's that vision that you're creating. It's, who do you want to become? Write it down, record a voice note, whatever whatever your method is of goal setting or whatever. But you can see, like you craft an avatar of who you want to be, and then you basically reverse engineer, what does that individual do every day? He or she is such a great individual. I want to become that person, right? So if you want to become that person, what does that person do every day? Oh, they wake up at a decent hour. They go to bed at a decent hour. Oh, they drink water every day. They're all about their health. Oh, they exercise, or they stretch, or they smile when they're out in public, right? Whatever the things are that you want to become that person, then it up and down what it is that person does, because that person should inspire you. When you look in the mirror, would you listen to yourself? Would you take your own advice? If not, then that's the person you need to become, is the one that you would listen to.
Wow, man. That's so good. That's so good. Justin, thank you for being a part of the Unstuck movement, telling your story, dude. I appreciate you being on here.
It was an honor to be here, man. Thanks for having me.